Welcome to the Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of the Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to the Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life.
Sometimes in life, we get to a place where we just can't take it anymore. We realize that we've been willing our life to happen. We've been pushing and pulling and manipulating from the beliefs that we've encountered or the beliefs that we've been taught or the beliefs that we've chosen over our lifetime. What life should look like, how life should act. And then there's that wake-up call in our life, that time where we notice that life isn't working the way we thought it should. We notice that there's got to be more to life. We notice that we're losing some of the things that are most important to us. And when that wake-up call comes, it gives us an opportunity to look at things differently, to observe how we've been in the past, to choose, at least for a moment anyhow, how we would like to be in the future. To notice that things can be different and we're the ones that can make them different. And when we come to that place where we understand that things can be different and we're willing to do what it takes to be different, if we're ready to move beyond the fears, the worries, the judgments of the past, we can open ourselves up to so much more. I'm with James Heppner today. James spent the last decade designing his life of gratitude and honestly can share he has an unshakable love of life. Not in spite of the losses that he has endured, but because of those losses. He no longer fears fear. Because of his journey, he now helps people ignite their vibrant energy towards life by paying attention to what they really want, to courageously embrace their comforts and discomforts with curiosity, and openly accept the goodness that lies at the core of both the win and the loss. James Heppner, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
Absolutely.
So how does it feel when you hear that bio read?
Honestly, slightly comforting and slightly uncomfortable. Because here's the thing is so much work. Gosh, when I think about my life, and I think any of the listeners, when you reflect on your life, like what did it take for you to get to where you currently are? A whole bunch of stories, a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so when I say unshakable love of life, I don't want to be non-empathetic towards whatever you're feeling. As a matter of fact, there's so much empathy. There's so much empathy, not like I got it figured out and you don't. Actually, the opposite of. We seem to have such a desire to have the I knows figured out, but the I don't know seems so threatening. What landed me into a story of my life where I checked out for 2.5 years, where I successfully found a way to sleep for 18.5 hours a day. That's for 2.5 years of my life. I've been married for about 10 years or so at that time, almost lost my marriage, my business, my investments. What landed me there is, think about it. What you feel threatened by controls your life. I felt threatened by not knowing. I felt threatened by when I lost. How could I not have known? I should demand of myself better than that, right? Unshakable love of life. It's like, yeah. When I came through my journey, what I said is, yeah, when I finally exited that hellhole of my life, I tried to exclude. Think about it. What happens when we exclude anything? We don't transform. We don't make safe. If you don't make safe, you'll never integrate. You'll never actually bring it together and transform your life. And so one of the things that I had to reckon with is that my journey belonged. And though I can make different decisions, but to be thankful to be thankful that I got to experience what it looked like and the reality and the evidence that appeared in my life when I took a hard hedge and bet against the I don't knows. When I let that rule my life, think about it. How often in life when we lose, is it based on, well, I knew, but I did this? No, we didn't know. That's why we did what we did. That's why this happened. And why is it the bad news that we didn't know? It's not bad. It's what you decided. Think about life for half a second. Think about marriage. Think about business. Anytime you're blessed, hashtag blessed, whatever that is, anytime you're given an opportunity, you're presented with something, what are the probabilities that it's going to turn out exactly the way that you thought? Not ever. You can project all you want, because projection is crystal ball gazing, it's fantasy creating. Reality is when you tap into what evidence will reveal. Time will only reveal that. Happily ever after, the Hollywood industry, good, bad, or indifferent, it's not any, it's just it is. The rose is given, they say that's the end. Well, that's the beginning. So I tie this all back to after my journey was over, after once again I exited that hellhole of my life, I had to reconcile that it wasn't in spite of. So I didn't say that I am big. Look at what I did. In spite of this, I did that. Because think about it. When you say in spite of, you're basically saying you never want to face that again. So what does that help you, that journey? What, you went through all of that so that you'll never have the ability to face a challenge in your life again? Actually, the opposite is primarily most true, I would think. And so I now say because of. And so it isn't, because of is not churning a sorrow into like, haha, laughing, or a negative into a positive. It's not. But because of says, listen, I went through, and because of that, I became the man who I am today. I learned not to choose to be grateful for everything. And that isn't to say we change the facts. A loss is a loss. We all know this. You know, you used to be a pilot. Some pilots, end a flight perhaps poorly or badly, or badly. They don't make it. A loss is a loss. And we have to, unless we face the loss, we're going to be focused on and spending our time pedaling away from loss. And therein lies the focal point of our life. And then we waste our life. So I think, in short, when you ask, how does that make me feel? It humbles me. It grounds me. I got a little choke in my voice. I get a little tearful. And here's the thing. What I learned from my story and what I've learned now is to cry and laugh is the goodness of life. How good, isn't it? How good isn't it to feel that perhaps what I just said didn't make any sense and I don't know what I'm saying. I'm trying the very best. And how good is it to know that I do know a little bit, but I know and I don't know, and both coexisting, and I can find strength in both. So why do we need to label the loss as bad and the win as just everything we want? Think about Mona Lisa, the painting. You see that painting. Have you ever realized she's not some big grin, but she's not like dystopically frowning? There's mystery. Why? They say when the face gently at the end of the lips just gently goes up, just very gently. So I hope that answers your question. That's how I feel about when you say that.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for realizing the power in the story and the message in the story. I truly appreciate it, and I know the imagination does also. 2.5 years where you say you checked out. What brought you to that place? And then what was the lesson, or what was the motivation? And I know neither one of those is the right word, so I apologize. But what came out of that 2.5 years understanding, just for you personally, not for the marriage, not for the business, not for anything else, but what for you, what drive came out of that for you?
Well, you ended that on a power note. Thank you. You always do. I got these great thoughts. The drive. We seem to be driven towards certain things until life shows us that what once worked didn't work or isn't working anymore. And I think I was once driven to having it work out. And it never dawned on me that I was most content and most peaceful when the preferences of what I wanted churned out the way that I wanted it to churn out. So my drive was there. I was taught, who knows where I picked this up, to be honest. My imagination can only stretch me far enough to contemplate where this came from. But the idea, and who hasn't heard of this? If the door's closed, you find a door where you can knock it down, and then you announce your presence. I was driven to make it happen, and boy, did I make it happen. Everywhere. Everywhere. My wife lived a different life than I did. She seemed to not create as much conflict or combat. I didn't really even notice the conflict and combat because I was too busy achieving in the first half of life. And I think the catalyst of all of it, so to your point, checking out a life, that was the first part of my journey. You know, coming full circle and having all the cans that I kicked down the road all hit me in one shot, one spot. All of those cans and all of those things were things that I pushed away. I pushed away all those losses and they accumulated. And guess what happens? You're going to deal with them in a time and space when, frankly, timing isn't great. I thought I'd read all the books about how to be a great dad, but now I had 2 children, young as they were. I'm checking out a life thinking I'm going to think my way through this. Thinking your way through this, sorting for good or bad, doesn't help much. If you're a pilot, you're in the air. You think about good or bad, am I going to, mess this up or whatever? It's going to lead you to fumbling with the controls. And you're all a mess. I did this for 2 years, solid, until roughly at about 2.25 years. I came to the awareness that I wasn't making room for my life. I wasn't making room for other people. I wasn't making room for the drive beyond willpower. Willpower had exhausted. Ask yourself in the boardroom, if you're in one, if you're going into one, if ever you want to outlast willpower, just wait, because willpower exhausts. I exhausted. I was running on fumes. And I decided to make a radical change and just let my life be driven by something different. What was it? I had no idea, other than I observed my wife and her life looked a lot better. And so for me, when I say better, I got a picture of a lion and a lamb hanging behind where I typically work. I thought the problem was I was too firm, like the lion. And I thought her life was grand because she was a lamb. Beautiful. So I decided I was the problem. So I exited my story and I became soft. You know what's interesting about becoming one or the other? Very ineffective. If you're overtly soft or overtly firm, so if you're too much lamb, too much lion, uninfluential. You won't influence yourself at best. I tried that on for about a year, kind of worked out okay, but the energy of life felt like it wasn't there. So this is what I came into. Something called fierce love. When you bring both firm and soft, both the lion and the lamb together at the very same time. And this is what it looked like, folks. Imagine you have decided that the thing that took you down in life was that you were being too firm, or let's say you say too soft. Everyone's stepping on me, for example. That's the too soft one. Imagine now that you come face to face with, I may have to go back and make safe the thing that I appointed and almost anointed as being the evil. And I reach back in because I wanted to live fully alive. Was it true that the firm in me also had place? Time to love and a time to hate, a time to give and a time to destroy. Both and, not either or. And I fumbled into this. And there's a little writing, it's a spiritual writing, and it just talks about, it's not this or that, it's this and that. So love and hate, right? And I stumbled into this and I came across that what presence could do this effectively? And this spiritual writing says that we can all do this. And I thought, what is this? What is this? And I thought, boy, you sure got to have a lot of willpower. And then I trigger back to my experience. And I realized this has nothing to do with willpower. This is spirit power. Imagination can hardly contain what spirit does. We are all spirit. We all get to co-create with one another. And so the firm and the soft happening at the exact same time. Each one of us has firm and soft energy surging through our veins, divine, feminine, and masculine, surging through our veins at the exact same time. And if we're deciding which one we're going to bring, we're just throwing ourselves into a hellish existence, because deciding is judging, and judging you will toil in life. When you judge, you will toil. I'm a amateur in the Bible, but there's a little writing, the Adam and Eve, you'll know the writing, any of you, whether it's true or not, I could care less. It's a story. It's a lovely story. And God basically said, if you want to be about my work, or even if you think I am judging like you think I am, this is, I think that's not true. But he says, if you want to get about the judging part of life, deciding if it's good or bad, you're going to have to go and live out there, and you're going to have to toil. But at any time we want, we can stumble back into the garden. How? So my epiphany was willpower less living. And what it requires, we integrate the firm and the soft coming together. Unshakable love of life is simply to say, I get to be here now. And I get to harmonize around nature. I don't expect nature to harmonize around me. I get to participate with what's directly in front of me. And finally, I get to want it as it is. And it sounds kind of bizarre, but I get to want what is here right now, because I realize it actually has a place of belonging, not in spite of, but because of.
No mistakes or coincidences. That's
right.
That's what quantum physics tells us. There are no either ors. It's and or both. That's what quantum physics tells us. So
love it.
It's not about spirituality. It's not about science. It's about living the energy that we are and who we are. And I appreciate you sharing the importance of understanding that there is the divine masculine in us, and there is the divine feminine in us, and it's us living authentically in both. That's really what life's about. I'm gonna ask you something that I hope nobody else has ever asked you. And maybe even I hope that it hasn't been something that you've thought about too much. You talked about not knowing and how painful that was, and how you've come into an understanding with it. I'd like you to share your thoughts on not knowing versus the unknown.
Not knowing and the unknown. The not knowing, the way I would read into that, so what's coming alive for me, is that involves me. The unknowing brings me into a wider perspective of collective consciousness. The unknowing, some people say God, universe, whatever they call it, has it all figured out. We are all divided selves. We have a demand and a desire. So if we think there's some creedal God who's got it all figured out, we might, even the Christian tradition, Jesus walked this earth, but Jesus was the Son of the Father. So Jesus was like in human form, had what we had. So he also was a divided self. So something that resonates with me is, this is just my perspective, but I personally choose to adopt the experience of life that we actually trust the unknown, because it's liberating to know what can't be known. And the human has a desire to participate with all things living, which is the evolving and the regeneration of. So ask me that again, because I want to answer properly. And I'm just going to take a stab at it, because this is part of the knowing and unknowing, right? Go ahead.
Well, I think you answered it very well. I think with where you are in what you share and what you're bringing to the world, I find,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
it's something that we share with Imagine Miracles, and I think we might even talked about this on our on your podcast. The uh, there we want life to be different, and we
mhm,
know that we're meant to live life differently,
mm,
and we know we can look back on.
mm,
I think in the way you shared it, you were sharing that the losses and the wins are all something that builds us, that helps us grow, that helps us expand. Sometimes there's more expansion in the losses than in the wins. That's how you shared it with us. So what I find is that people are afraid
mm,
of not knowing.
mm,
Not knowing means that
mm,
they're put in this space, or they're put in this place where they're not in control of their lives. When I talk of the unknown is where that different life is. Because if we didn't or weren't willing to step into the unknown, then we're going to live life in the known, which means
mm,
things aren't going to change for us.
mm, mm,
So
mhm,
I think you shared it very well,
mhm,
but
mm, mhm.
is there an expansion that you would like to now from that aspect of the unknowing,
Mhm.
the fear of it, and the unknown life that we're looking for?
Well, Vince, gosh, Vince, what they often say, the best way to like kill a great question is to answer it. So perhaps I was just taking you on a trail. And here's the thing, we're playing a mystery. And so I listened to how you're unpacking it. And I'm thinking, gosh, you could have just answered for me instead of even asking, because you had such a brilliant and such a unique way of putting it. But yeah, I think to tap together what you and I are saying, perhaps, and if I would just add something, you brought up the concept of different, the not knowing. It's what we actually want is to express our difference. Who doesn't feel different from the world? Like, that's obvious. We all do. And of course, if we feel different, what do we expect? If we bring our knowing to the world, so our passion, our obsession, when we bring our knowing of it, our version of that imprint we have on our heart, that uniqueness, that we bring that piece, that's unique to the entire ecosystem. 8 billion people, they don't have reference for what you're doing. So for us, it's a version of known, but then we observe that it's unknown for them. And so different, the not knowing, it can either lead us to, and again, so we're taking this back to, it can lead us to fearful anxiousness, or, and it's like a little story back in the day, Bruce Springsteen, I may get this story a little bit tousled around, but Bruce Springsteen was sitting in the green room about to go on stage. And of course, the opening band was going to come perform for him. And so they were in the room with him, and he noticed their knees were shaking, and he just checked in with them, and he said, hey guys, you okay? And then they looked at him and they said, well, yeah, it'd be nice to be you. You don't have this. And he said, well, just a second here. I once had just what you do, and I still do. The only thing is, the drive and the energy that we use, what we receive. So what we receive, if we receive it as bad news, then we're going to hedge against it and never take the gift. We're going to say, I perform in spite of these knocking knees. He says, I perform because of these knees, meaning we can allow the fear. Because here's the question, how do we move from being afraid of the fear to no longer, like you said earlier, I'm not afraid of the fear anymore? Well, to recognize and perhaps also mature the spot of what we feel. Maybe this is all anticipation energy. It's not fearful, afraid energy. It's now we're ready to go. So Bruce Springsteen, to the point, Bruce says, listen, when my knees shake, now I know I'm ready. So here's the thing. We all got a little difference, but no, I love the way you put that. I love the way you put it.
So when you take this experience that you've had, what you've learned about yourself, what you've learned about life, like you said, from your perspective, how do you bring all that knowingness now? How do you bring all that experience to help other people?
I think we're all about just saying we're just a person. We're just a person, and just a person has had a journey. And to be honest, I don't know what you think about how you perceive me, but the way I perceive you and the way I perceive myself is, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and say anything about what you may know. Because anytime I say anything that I may know, it gives by default instant reason and instant invitation for something that I don't know. And so here's the thing. I had a client that I was on last night, a one-on-one coaching client, and he has feared not knowing for much of his life. And we're moving along through our journey, and all of a sudden he says to me, I ask a question, he goes, gosh, James, I don't know the answer, but I'm just going to take a stab at it. To choose to participate, we can either check out of life or check in. When we check into life, we're like, well, listen, how is my story? How is my journey? How can I redeem, whether it's suffering, whether it's joys? How can I maximize this for what it is? And all that we can say maximize, not trying to hypervigilantly be a leader when you feel like you're not, but how can you let whatever's happened in your life perhaps give meaning, perhaps help another person on a journey? The only thing I can share is we have to find the courage in us to say that to share is a good thing. To share is a good, to be open. And honestly, it takes tremendous courage for me to think that I got, and I'll be honest, anything truly meaningful to say, because though I know there's meaning everywhere, but I am not some master wisdom person that will tell you what you should think. I'm just here to perhaps model forward what it looks like to be open, to be vulnerable, to say, this is just what I have gone through. And ultimately, if any of this resonates with you, great. But it is not deciding that my way is right and your way is wrong, not deciding that how I have joy in my life will bring you joy. But it is more so just to be with the experience and let the other person share their experience. And so the one-on-one work that I do in my personal coaching, for example, and I also do a live community group call every Friday, but the one-on-one work that I do, we look for strengths. We don't look to convert people into who and how we see life. We look at what brings them strength and what brings them energy. I just know that my life was so miserable before. I just know that I was a selective gratitude person. It was only grateful when it turned out in my favor. And that's why I've just become so fixated on gratitude. Life is a celebration. One day we'll go to another place or another, however that's going to look. But this breath will cease. This body will die. And the good news is we get to choose. We get to choose to expect. We get to choose to be grateful. And honestly, my suffering ended the day that I chose to be grateful, not changing the facts, keeping the facts intact, and learning to trust, and learning just to enjoy what this actually, think about it, Vince. We get to participate with life. You got a star right behind you. How wonderful, isn't it, that a human gets to lay on the grass sometimes and look up at the stars and feel the smallness of who they are? Not just the bigness. Yeah, we want bigness. That's great. Most of my people, they find me once they have felt quite big for quite many years and they're pretty successful, but they're like, how could there be meaning? The soul cannot live without meaning. Success, we can live without, but meaning we can't. Imagine what would it look like for you to enjoy the smallness that you are. I know you're craving to be big, me too, us all, but you know what? The good news comes and we get to be just a man. I'm both small and big at the same time. Gravity pulls me down to the earth and my arms are flapping in the air, whatever is going on.
So many things that you shared in that, but a couple that I really want to bring out for the imagination is you said you're here to model it, and each and every one of us are here truly to be the example. If we can be the example of authenticity, if we can be the example of the willingness to grow and expand, that's where the true knowledge comes from. You can be lectured to forever and ever, and until you see and feel the wholeness that's being shown in an example, it's all just mental. So that was huge. No rights or wrongs. There's a whole lot of wars going on, and a whole lot of wars have gone on over the years over right or wrong. And one of the most important things that we have to realize that each person has their belief in what's right, their belief in what's wrong. But once again, quantum physics, spirituality tells us there's no rights or wrongs. And then the gratefulness. I love it when you said selective grateful. Selective is the right word, because we have a tendency to do that. And that was so powerful. So thank you for sharing that. Absolutely amazing. James, just like before, our time has gone so fast. I want you to share a parting piece of guidance with the imagination before we end our time together.
Well, let me just keep it really simple. And honestly, these are my 4 values that I do my life by. And I think these may speak to you. Number 1, ask yourself, if life owes you, what does your life become? If life's owing you, you're always looking at it. You're doing this check-in, this balancing. Am I getting more than I'm giving? So this is my first value. Life owes me nothing. What would your life look like if it owed you nothing? How could you be grateful maybe naturally, without willpower, without changing the facts? It owes you nothing. Yes, your wife died early. I don't know. Yes, you got a bonus and it was way more than you thought. Keep you humble constantly. Number 2, nothing has to be perfect. Nothing. Perfection is the lowest standard. Nothing has to be perfect. What would happen if you finally stopped demanding yourself across the finish line? What would happen? What would happen? Number 3, everything is a co-creation. Who likes to do it alone? Who likes to go at it alone? Nobody. We get to create. We don't have to solve life's tensions and conflicts. We get to help evolve them. We get to co-create. Creation never stops. Everything is a co-creation. You're not doing it alone. Whether you're locked in your basement or in your room, you're never doing it alone. Number 4, sorry. This is the most powerful one for me. Nothing traps me, everything frees me. And I know that's a big ask, but it's a powerful ask. It's a powerful statement. It's a commanding and demanding in a compassionate way that when life shows up, you will not be about asking of life to wrap itself around you, because life doesn't work like that. Nature doesn't work. We must harmonize around nature. So if nothing traps you and everything frees you, then ask yourself this question. Where do you have need to be in control now of areas that are directly in your control? So in my life, I don't need to be in control, nor do I want to be. I simply need to allow it and to participate with it. My son, the other day, I took him to school. He's high-functioning autistic. He's 15 years old. He wasn't having a good morning. My 17-year-old son was sitting beside me. And I looked into the back seat where Harrison, 15-year-old autistic son, was sitting. And I said, Harrison, you look like your day is going a little rough. And he says to me, yeah, Dad, it's not going the greatest. And the good news is when we're just honest, he sees clearly. And I looked at him and I said, fair enough, Harrison, I totally get it. I said, so what would you say your day is going to be about? And he goes, Dad, as he looks out the window, he says, Dad. I said, yes, son. He says, I've realized something in life. I'm listening the whole time, but now I'm really listening. And he says, Dad, the only thing I have to do today, I realized the most important thing I have to do is just participate with it. Participate with what they say here's for you right now. And if I do that, I'll be just fine. And I'm like, wow. Now that blew my imagination. The star. All we have to do, folks, is when we're given the gift of something to experience, how about we just say, taste and see. Let's taste this. Let's take it in. Let's eat the scroll. Let's take it on board. That's the good news.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. James, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you, Vince. They can find me by simply going to the website, www.jamesheppner.com. So it's JAMESHEPPNER.com. There you'll find, for those of you that are interested in one-on-one coaching, they can do a discovery call with me. I currently have about a 3.5 month wait list, but nonetheless, reach out to me there. And of course, for all of the listeners, is a gift for each one of us. And so the one-on-one coaching, by the way, is more in-depth work, an individual journey. But if you want a community journey, if you want to experience something at no charge, Friday, noon, every week, we do a weekly wins and losses community call where people from around the world come in, check in, and they share from their week a win and a loss. So if you come, you can either observe or share. And what you're going to find is people, their eyes, the way they light up when they realize that they're lost. We don't change the facts. This is a loss. And it's real. This is how you feel. That's great. So in between the win and the loss, good or bad, it's not either or, it's together, both and, Lion and the Lamb. We find the gray. My son's second name is Harrison Gray Heppner. We sit with the gray and we become encouraged that we can handle both the win and the loss. Look at the Mona Lisa. She's not big smile. It's a slight little smirk. It's the mystery, like I said earlier. And so we want to get with a slight smirk going, yeah, I've got the ability. My shoulders expanded in real time, which means I'm ready for next week. So when you share a win and a loss, you're ready to hop out of that gate next week, and you're ready to take courageous action. And guess what's going to be required when you take courageous action? For you to feel safe in knowing that when you are faced with the inevitable of life, which is either it's going to feel like a win or feel like a loss, you have to not have created a bunch of cans that you've kicked down the road and you're afraid of them. You're going to have let that residual go. So that's why we let it go at the end of the week. We open ourselves up for the next week and we're ready for action, courageous all over again.
And all that information will be available to you on James's show page. Just go to themiracleu.com, look for all that information. James, thanks for making our day better and sharing your wisdom, sharing your desire to make a difference in the world. We surely appreciate you.
Thanks, Vince. Thanks for being on.
On behalf of my wife, Mary, who's also my business partner, the entire team here at Imagine Miracles, we wish each and every one of you a miracle day.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleu.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 Mind Awakening Steps Toward Your Unique Purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. All available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleu.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.